Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, everybody. How's it going? How's it going? LSUOdyssEY.COM here tonight with special guest Logan Graffia of Sports Etouffe will be joining us in just 1 second. Very packed show for you tonight. Logan, how are you doing, my man?
Hey, Lon, thanks for having me. I'm doing good today.
Doing good, doing good. How's
Oh, yeah.
anything cool planned for the weekend for Mother's Day?
Gonna try to see if we can take my mother and even my grandmother out to eat. Gotta do what I can for the fam. It's my mother. It's Mother's Day every day, in my opinion. But when it comes to the holiday, I gotta go all out.
Exactly, my man. Exactly, and that's what the type of weekend we're hoping to have as well. And Logan, this week, hopefully, this weekend for Brian Kelly can be a lot more chill than this week has been. I mean, bro, this has been a firestorm of just NIL madness for Brian Kelly to have to deal with. He literally was raked over the coals time and time again this last week for some of the comments that were maybe taken out of context. Well, definitely taken out of context. Some of his comments, when you listen to the whole thing, it was pretty practical from BK, in my opinion. But kind of a few retweets that went viral and made Kelly's comments kind of appear a little more from the Dabo playbook. Just we're not going to pay players, which he did say, maybe he should have had better wordage there. Maybe people should have played the whole clip, whatever. But what was your honest to God raw take on what Brian Kelly said regarding LSU's transfer philosophy?
I honestly don't have any issue with it, but I mean, we are living in a world in college football where it's almost like free agency in a way, like they have in the NFL and the NBA, in a manner of speaking. And Brian Kelly wants people that want to come here to play football and not worry about getting rich. I mean, yes, the NIL is always a huge plus and it's a huge upside, but college football still has it's not really free agency. I mean, yes, there's NIL, but Brian Kelly is correct. Come here and play ball. Don't worry about the NIL. The NIL is just a bonus. I mean, you get to play at LSU. It's one of the top brands in the country, and even there's people all across the globe that know about the LSU football brand. So I had no issue with what Brian Kelly said at all. Some of the media members like that I've seen you mention, kind of took it out of context and kind of spun it negatively in a way, and I just don't think I never saw it as a negative, because everything that he said I thought was kind of correct. And I mean, if people got offended, then maybe LSU's not for them.
Well, I mean, it's basically like, do you really want to just like get paid and then not even play football at this point? Because like that's really what it would be. And that's probably what's going to happen with D. Will, who went to Oklahoma. That's not going to end good for them. We basically would have been paying $1.5 million for a fourth string defensive tackle, brother. 4 million combined for him and Barrow, and they were not better than Mekhi Wingo or better than Mason Smith, who we really would have used that money to retain, and they weren't worth the money. I think that's across the board has been accepted by media members. They weren't worth the money. But that's kind of become the consensus after Brian Kelly was kicked in the ass. And I just want to play this clip. We want to show what a lot of people won't, and they still won't show this entire clip. They won't show the entire thing.
D lineman, where are you right now with that?
Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because we're selling something a little bit differently, and that is we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players, and unfortunately, right now, you know, that's what some guys are looking for. They want to be bought. And look, I understand NIL is part of this, and we have an incredible collective. We have very, very generous opportunities around the greater Baton Rouge area for NIL opportunities. So they are here. But we're not going to go out and buy players. That's not what this is about. This was never about that. We will develop you. We will get you ready for the next step, as we did with Jaden Daniels, as we did with Malik Neighbors, as we did with Brian Thomas. We developed 3 defensive linemen that all got drafted this year, and we'll do that again.
Great point.
But if you're just looking to get paid, you're looking in the wrong place. If you like all the things that we do here in developing our players, bringing you into a championship program, playing in front of the best fan base in America, playing for championships, and having an opportunity for NIL, you should be a Tiger. But if you just want to get, you know, paid, this is not the place for you.
Somebody said when you buy a player, they own you.
Well, they also have to understand that they're walking into a locker room with a cloud over them as well. And so, you know, when you're making those decisions, I have to factor in everybody who's sitting in these seats here, you know, and everybody, including, you know, my offensive linemen who are the bell cows, who have been playing for me over the last 3 years as freshmen and sophomores and juniors. What about them? Everybody has to be part of this solution. And so, you know, we're just not going to get into it if it's strictly about now. If you add that into all the other things I mentioned, then LSU is the right place for you. It just hasn't worked out so far with the guys that we've recruited.
And
okay. I wanted to give that clip its full due, just because it wasn't. That whole thing has not. I still don't see it played in all these reaction shows, time after time after time after time. Maybe they love the sound of their own voice so much, Logan, that they just cannot go 2 minutes without, you know, that clip or whatever. But great work from Jacques Doucet. He seems to always get these annual interviews with Kelly. And Kelly just gave a very nuanced answer that I think if Kirby Smart gives that answer, I think if Ryan Day gives that answer, I think if Steve Sarkisian gives that answer, it is applauded. Brian Kelly, I think this exposed more than anything a media bias and a fan bias against Brian Kelly. There's a lot of haters, man. That's just my take.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing I've noticed is how the media kind of just how they cover LSU, not the local media, but kind of the national media. We've seen it with LSU women's basketball, how they covered Angel Reese. We've seen it with Jaden Daniels. I mean, there was at a point where nobody was even thinking about Jaden Daniels for the Heisman except maybe you and I. And I mean, everyone was bashing LSU men's basketball for the whole Will Wade scandal, or quote unquote scandal, which is legal now. But the way LSU just gets covered, I do think there is a bias that you mentioned, and it's crazy to see because I didn't find a problem with anything Coach Kelly said at all. I mean, if you're just looking to be bought as a player, which some players are out there searching just for the next dollar amount, they're not even worried about playing ball, which maybe you don't really love football as much as you think. Maybe I get it.
Go to Colorado then, you know, go to Colorado. Like
I'm not gonna bash Colorado. I'm not gonna bash Colorado. I love Coach Prom. I love him to death. I mean, I love what he's doing over there. Love Shador. I mean, the cockiness might be perceived as arrogance, but I mean, I played with players like that just have that stealthy confidence in the man who's speaking. So I get what you're saying.
We're actually, like, I was actually going to ask you about Colorado for sure. Like, we're going to get into Colorado 100%, which is maybe kind of weird for an LSU focused show, but it's just something that is so interesting to me that I felt we had to get into it with them. But Logan, I want to ask you this: where are you at as far as, like, okay, this is the line? You know, if you agree with Kelly, right? Okay, we're not going to like throw money around. We're not going to pay for every guy on the block. What is your line for you, like, concerning like where you think LSU should throw the bag? Like, is it like that generational quarterback you feel like you should throw the money for? Like, what is your opinion on like who's worth throwing the bag?
So of course you mentioned the one position or one of the positions already, the generational quarterback. I don't know, like NIL wise, what they gave Jaden Daniels, if they even gave him much at all. But the quarterback, of course, and then, in my opinion, you gotta pay. Like I said, this is like college free agency, and it's crazy to me. But the offensive line, because your teams are. This is an offensive world. This is an offensive league everywhere, college, NFL, even in Canada. But you build an offense from quarterback to offensive line, then the sky's the limit. Because if you just have an average defense, you'll be fine. So it would just have to be quarterback and your offensive lineman. I mean, if you want to include some defensive linemen too, you can. Because I mean, like I said, you can win in college football with just an average defense. If you just have a top 50 defense and a number one offense, then you'll be fine.
Jaden definitely got paid, man. Jaden Daniels definitely got paid for his services at LSU by LSU. LSU paid him handsomely. In fact, he was one of the top 10 highest NIL earners when he left LSU. And LSU had 3 of the top 10 in the NIL. So, that's kind of interesting thing to me. I just want to make an interesting point here that no one's really brought up. LSU won't throw the money around. LSU struggling to get NIL. Okay, how would that be then when we've like this questions about LSU and you can't build your brand there, whatever. People are trying to negatively recruit. I'm sure that's what they'll say. When it's like, how easy is it to sell when Jaden Daniels, Joe freaking Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Haley Bryant, Livy Dunn, Angel Reese, Flo J, the list goes on of NIL powerhouses. Even Garrett Nussmeier is in the top 25 of earners right now. Garrett Nussmeier earns $1.1 million in NIL valuation. So it's people thinking that you cannot make money at LSU as a player off NIL, you cannot have a high brand representation, is absolutely ludicrous. When you're looking at our brand reps basically help Jaden Daniels as much as possible win that Heisman. Nonstop pushing for him, marketing for him to win that. That's why the campaign was so hot. That's why Cody Warsham just got an incredible job going to USC. Probably a massive raise as well. Well deserved. That guy's a freak. I've known him for a while. Very cool to see him do that. But once again, you've seen LSU branding and LSU marketing take over. But whoa. LSU, they won't pony up. They won't throw money around. It's like, I'm glad we don't have a stupid, program set up where we're going to throw $1.5 million for a 4th string DT. Like, what are we becoming at that point?
It's absolutely crazy, Lon. Because I mean, it's like you mentioned, we had 3 athletes in the top 5 in terms of NIL. I mean, Livy Dunn was number one in the world, or not the world, the country, in terms of NIL. Angel Reese was in the same vicinity, and they're saying that LSU won't fork it over, but it's there in black and white that they have done it before. It's just they're not gonna just give it to anybody,
and that's why it is actually worth something. That is why, and LSU is different. And that's why LSU is, only second only to Alabama in the 21st century for national championships, because we do things a different way. And yes, LSU likely were paying players the whole time under, Saban era, allegedly, there's stories allegedly paying players during the Miles era, allegedly paying players during the Orgeron. This has allegedly been going on all throughout college football history, right? Allegedly. I've been using the word, notice. But it just seems like Kelly's getting crucified for this thing when his quote wasn't even listened to fully, taken out of context, and then he's literally just wanting to do what is like the number one thing staffs cannot do right now, Logan, which is retain players, keep players year to year to year. He's wanting to keep his guys. What do you think Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Harold Perkins, Garrett Nussmeier, what do you think those guys think, when they see a guy like, Brian Kelly saying, no, I'm not going to just throw away. I'm just not going to throw around money. I'm not going to get all desperate and I've got to win a title in year 3, do whatever it takes. What do you think they see when with their coach when they see that?
I think you got to be bought into the program, not bought in for money. And I think some of the players understand, and some of them may not. You got to see both sides of the spectrum. But from Nussmeier's point of view and the player's point of view, if you're just coming on the team because you got bought, then we're not really going to be. They might not be fully all in on the player that gets quote unquote bought. So if you get recruited out of high school and maybe develop with everyone else, like with your freshman class, sophomore class, whatever, then the players might look at you differently. Now, like I said, if you're just a player that just got bought with money, they're going to probably view you differently. They might just feel like you're just there, just going through the motion. So I think I see both sides of the coin. It's just it just depends. Like say, I don't think everyone's getting millions of dollars. They might be getting the top players, like maybe Harold Perkins and the Bryce Youngs and the Jaden Daniels and the CJ Strouds of the world probably were getting all that NIL money in the millions range, but I don't think everyone's getting millions of dollars. They might get 100K here, 20K at the lowest probably, but
it is so stupid.
It's crazy
for Oklahoma, for A&M to throw that type of money around, because why? Now that the word's gonna get out, you are going to price yourself out. It is literally going to be a rat race. Do you think you're just gonna have nonstop money on trees, billions, trillions, nonstop, like A&M and Texas think, Oklahoma think? That money's not gonna last forever. And really, we've seen the model of a bot team, right? The 2022 Texas A&M #1 all-time ranked roster. We've seen what a bought and paid for roster does, and that team collapsed. It crippled the program. The high, what was it, $100 million coach was kicked out of there, booted out of there 2 years after signing the contract. Just a year after signing that #1 class, it absolutely imploded at a biblical rate, brother. What happened at Texas A&M was madness. And so it is a lesson for everyone. And they're, okay, well, we're going to try and keep this stuff down. Yeah, it might be the wild, wild west still, but there's a sheriff in town now, at least. Legislation isn't here yet, but we're starting to figure out how to kind of get a handle on this right now. And this is how you do it. But Logan, what's the defensive tackle position looking like to you right now? Are we really screwed, Logan?
I'm not going to sit here and say that we're screwed. I'm not going to sit here and say if we go into the season with what we got, we're screwed, because you also got to remember you got McKinley coming in. He's a 5-star. He's 5-star. I mean, you go out and get 5 stars for a reason. They're great, but you got to look into the portal. It really is a weak spot on this team. I wouldn't panic if we didn't get anyone out the portal. I would say let's just roll with the guys we got and see what happens. I mean, we have the best defensive line coach in the country in Bo Davis. I mean, you got plenty of defensive talent on the defensive line. I mean, it might look average right now, but I'm waiting to see what they look like when the Bullets are flying live against USC week 1. So if you miss out on Huntington or Suggs in the portal, I really wouldn't worry all that much. I would be okay with some of the younger guys that they have on the roster. I mean, I know some might be all doom and gloom over it, but I'd be okay with it. I mean, yes, I do think that we do need another defensive tackle, but if we didn't, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Who's on the defensive tackle roster that's really on roster right now for the defensive tackle that's really caught your eye? Like someone that's like people are forgetting him, people are overlooking him, but I think this year he's going to have big snaps for us. Who's that guy?
I can't really pinpoint one just off the top of my head. I mean, when you look at spring ball, the one position I was honestly looking at in spring wasn't even really defensive tackle. Like, I knew defensive tackle was a need. I was looking at defensive end because that's important too. You got to be able to rush the passer off the edges, and we didn't do that well last year. So one player in particular that really caught my eye was Womack. I mean, just what he did. He was on special teams for a few plays in the 2023 season, and when I seen him go down on kickoff and just waylay somebody that one time, that's what I was like, okay, let me take notice of this guy. And I liked what I saw in spring. I really did. And then you got Sean. He's coming back. Parashon and Swinson. You got a few guys that I've liked. I like the defensive end position a lot. That's the one position that was actually one of my few worries. I mean, I had defensive tackle then defensive end. So,
I
but as far as
didn't worry. I didn't worry at all because I knew those guys were coming back.
right,
I
mean,
was worried about defensive tackle because it was like I know those guys. You know, defensive ends; those guys are coming back. Sean, Savion Jones, Swinson.
right.
I know they're coming back, and they're damn good. And we barely even played them because Matt House just played the wrong guys, bro, all the time. But
Absolutely.
it's Savion Jones. We could kick him inside, I think, to DT. But, you know, Parashon, maybe we could do the same thing as well, 3-tech or something. But
you also got Guillory coming back. I mean, he's like the seasoned vet of the defensive tackle spot. I'm not – if I was going to pinpoint somebody, that would be someone that I'm looking forward to seeing because he's been with the program for a few years now, and he's the veteran in that defensive tackle room at this point. So I really think that I really do like Guillory on the defensive line, especially now with Bo Davis as the defensive line coach. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Sure. I mean, here's the thing, though. We've the times we've bet on Jacoby and Guillory and said, like, here's an opportunity, here's a start, the rare times it's happened, even when he's played for a stretch of games, we've seen very little production. That said, there's been a lot of times where it's just been him on an island. I mean, you saw his best game was probably this game against Wisconsin, his last start, or the year before the bowl game against Purdue. He's not going to rack up a lot of TFLs. He's not going to rack up, the sexy stats. But if we could get kind of a good penetrating, athletic defensive tackle next to him, his kind of clogging and congestion kind of run defense, run stopping, old school nose tackle kind of ways, that combination could be beautiful. And I'm just wondering, do we have that guy already on roster? Is Preston Hickey also more of a run defense, run stopper? I think so. So probably him and Guillory are probably going to rotate, or he's going to be behind Guillory. Sean Washington, can he be that guy who's going to be kind of maybe expected to get 3.5, 4 sacks a season, something like that, and provide some type of push from the front to get, maybe Harold Perkins, free from the middle, some middle blitzes, especially if they're going to play him at middle linebacker, which I'm not sure about. But yeah, defensive tackle. I mean, Jacoby and Guillory, man, he's been here, 4 seasons already. We haven't seen much. We've seen some injuries. It's always been just kind of a matter of like, when is this going to happen for him? When are the stars going to align? Is it going to be 2024? Because really, we need someone to just go ball out at defensive tackle. We need 2 guys, 3, 4 guys, really, who are just going to go ball out. And is it going to be the freshman, Dominic McKinley? Is he even going to be ready? I mean, for me, it is a very worrying spot because if a team can just run right up the gut on you in the SEC, where every team's got a damn good running back or 2 of them or 3 of them, Logan, like, we will not be able to stop teams again for a second.
We've seen it against Alabama. We've seen it when we played against Alabama. Jalen Milroe was
Exactly.
going right up the middle on our defensive front, and he just burst through every A gap that you could possibly think. And I
And
mean,
we didn't have
was it
Wingo, didn't have Weeks.
nope. I mean, was it scheme problems? Maybe, but also maybe was it personnel problems? Possibly as well. I mean,
Both.
the one thing I can say with Guillory is, I mean, I see what you're saying is, but one thing I always tell people is coaching does matter. I can honestly say I've experienced it. I went from a coach that didn't really want nothing to do with me. I was just there, and then a new coach comes in, develops me, and then all of a sudden I started doing things I didn't even know I could do. So you get Bo Davis
That's
coming in.
true.
He's the best defensive line coach in the country. You paid him that money because that's what you think of him, and we've seen it. I mean, two of his linemen just got drafted in the NFL in the first 2 rounds. You got Byron Murphy just got drafted.
Yep.
Devondre Sweat just got drafted. So I really do think Bo Davis coming back to his alma mater really can help develop the defensive line, even if
Man,
we don't land anyone in the transfer
Logan,
portal.
I hope to God you're right about him with Guillory, because if he can unlock what Guillory was recruited to be and how he played when he was recruited, Jacobian Guillory, I could be. I don't want to get crazy here, but at his full potential, the kid could be a fucking All-American. I'm just gonna say it right now. Like, mind my language, he really could be, because just the thought of him finally coming good after like 4 years it's exciting to me as a football junkie, as an LSU sicko, someone who's covered recruiting. I remember when it was supposed to be him and Jaquelin Roy were supposed to be the Bash brothers for LSU at defensive tackle. And it seemed like I don't think he ever started a game alongside Roy at all for LSU. I don't think he ever started one alongside Roy. And Guillory, man, he really does need to have a big season, and not only just to hold his own in the SEC, in the trenches, be able to stop the run, grind it out. He's got to have help, though. We got to have a nice rotation there. Gio Paez, we got to have big snaps from him. Sean Washington's got to kick some ass from defensive tackle and get some push. Preston Hickey has got to come in for some valuable snaps to give Jacobian Guillory a breather. We could be playing up to 15 to 17 games this season, Logan. It's absolutely crazy with the new expansion. So, having an adequate defensive line to match what we have on the offense, what we have in the offensive trenches, it is an absolute must. I mean, we have some holes elsewhere on the team. There's still some questions at corner. There's a lot of talent there, but where the piece is going to fall, where are they going to fall there? This is a very interesting team, Logan, but defensive tackle, to me, it does worry a lot of people. People have gotten very obsessed with it. And it's kind of been the new vogue, trendy flavor of the month thing to do is freak out about LSU not having defensive tackles. But this is something I've been keeping an eye on for a long time, and LSU hasn't recruited the position well for a few years. I just noticed it. I'm just like, we got like one defensive tackle in this last class. Like, not talking about 2024, but at the time it was like the 2022 class or something like that. And I'm like, we just got like one defensive tackle, and the next one we only got like two. Like, we need to start loading up on those guys. And I think, Logan, what you're going to start seeing is, to avoid what LSU and a lot of other teams faced when they're in a bind with these really big time trenches guys, and they can really extort you for top dollar in this situation. I think you're going to see LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, every big school in the country, Florida State, you can just go on a list, Auburn, whoever you want to say. All these big programs are going to load up on trench guys from offensive line, defensive line. Just load them up, because those guys, they stay. They don't cost too much when they're already there. And seriously, what just happened showed that the players and their parents, their handlers as well, smelled the market and took advantage of a situation and did it like a bunch of geniuses. Let's hand it to them. Let's give them a round of freaking applause, because they just made themselves millionaires. And, congrats to them for seeing that everyone needed defensive tackles. And so I think you're going to see teams kind of load up on guys like that. But Logan, outside of defensive tackle, what's the most glaring area or even areas of need for LSU for in your eyes on roster?
It would probably have to be at the safety position because, I mean, you lose Andre Sam. I mean, you have Major Barnes coming back, but it's fairly young in that room. I mean, if you look at the depth chart right now that I'm currently reading, if you look at it, Kylan Jackson, he's a freshman, but we have been told to watch out for Kylan Jackson. I mean, everything that I've seen in the spring game, I went back and watched it just again yesterday, and Kylan Jackson was all over the place. Could be one of those next up and comers. It could be the next Tyron. We don't know. But then you got, according to this, it says Jordan Gilbert could be starting a free safety. Jordan Allen, we have him. A lot of young guys in that safety room. So I'm not saying go out and get anyone in the transfer portal. I'm not saying that at all, but that's just one position that I would want to see how that goes because I didn't necessarily think that was one of our strongest secondary positions at LSU last season on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm curious to see how it goes because, I mean, opposite Major Burns is what I'm really curious to see. Is it going to be Jordan Gilbert, Jordan Allen, or are they going to put someone else there? Are they going to put Sage Ryan at strong safety? We don't know. I mean, we do know, but we might know.
They're going to have Jordan Gilbert, I think, and then they're going to have Sage Ryan at free safety, and then Major Burns at the star. That's at least what they've done through spring. But I think what you could also see is Major Burns just become the backup strong safety, and then you move Harold Perkins to the star. And then you have Greg Penn and Whit Weeks, both at linebacker. So now you technically have a third linebacker on the field with Harold Perkins at star position. It's so much more flexible than having Major Burns on the field at star. And you know Harold Perkins can cover with the best of them. He shut down Luther Burden. No one on LSU's team could touch Luther Burden. He goes on Luther Burden and shuts him the hell down. It held him to like 2 yards from something like 7 or 8 targets. And the guy already had like 120 yards in the game in the first quarter. And Perkins just shuts him down. So for me, I think that's what you got to do. I think you got to have Gilbert, strong safety, Sage Ryan, free safety, and then you got to have Perkins at the star. And I think Major Burns, I think he's had enough time starting for LSU. He's started 2 seasons now for LSU. Major Burns. Actually, no, 2.5 seasons for LSU. He's had some injury woes, maybe take some of his speed down. But I have some hesitations about him. And I'm just thinking, at safety, I love Kylan Jackson. Love what we're seeing from him. I think he's going to be the next absolute superstar. I love what we've seen from Deshaun McBride back there as well. That pick that he had, high pointing that pick on AJ. I'm trying to think of the new quarterback, that new transfer quarterback,
AJ Swan.
AJ Swan, yeah, AJ Swan. I was like, what is the name of that bird? That pick was sick.
Absolutely. And one of the comments that I see that you have there from your guy Cole saying bro was coached by Kyle Williams in high school. I mean, Kyle Williams, former LSU great, former Buffalo Bills defensive tackle. I mean, you can't go wrong with getting coached by a seasoned vet like Kyle Williams. I mean, he was great at LSU, was great in the NFL for all those years. So I do agree with Cole. That's a forgotten player that we acquired right there in the Mod Bro. So
absolutely, and they moved him from outside now to inside. He's going to gain some weight, and he could be that athletic, penetrative force in the inside next to Jacobian Guillory. Who knows, man? Because like you just said, I mean, he's had that coaching from one of the best. And he's such a, Kyle Williams would be on the phone with him like that in an instant to say, bro, let me help you out. Let me give you some tips. And that's one of the best DTs in as you just said, in LSU freaking history, brother. I just, it's a very interesting spot, defensive tackle, but then safety, like you said, it could end up completely different than what we've seen lined up in the spring, where you've had Gilbert, you've had Sage Ryan, and then you had Major Burns. You could see Burns removed, Perkins put there. You could swap. Kylan Jackson was one of the guys in the back. It could go all over the place. I think Jordan Gilbert is going to have some role to play. I think probably as a starter. He's been really damn good throughout spring. He's had like one or two missed tackles, had some bad angles, but nothing of the Andre Sam variety and stuff like that what we saw a few years ago. This last season, and Major Burns the last 2 years, where just some of the tackling at the safety position literally just cost us touchdowns. Let's just be real here. As a former safety, it's like that's actually only a 15-yard catch right there, but instead of the bad angles taken, and that guy just goes and he's gone. And you saw that way too much. And you really have to shore up that safety spot. You really have to shore up the linebacker spot. The linebacker spot's going to be fine as long as I think Whit Weeks is on the field for the most part to have that pace there. But, bro, the defensive tackle spot, there's worries there. Worries, or maybe just who knows where the chips are going to fall at safety corner. But is this defense ready to be 80th at least, 85th, maybe even 50th in the country instead of 107th or the worst, or be like still a major work in progress, and this year might be a really, tough year.
So for me, I've tried not to do this. I even tried not doing this when it comes to the Saints and the Pelicans, when it comes to seeing things in camp or a spring game or summer league, whatever. And in this case, the spring game. For me, I really do think when it's all said and done, I mean, when you go out and when the Bullets are flying live against the USC Trojans week 1, I really do believe in Blake Baker and what he's doing and what he's building. I believe in Bo Davis. I believe in the whole entire coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball now. I didn't really fully believe in it with Matt House there. So I think when it's all said and done, this could be a top 60 defense approaching top 50. And that's honestly a huge pickup because, like you just mentioned, we was in the hundreds last season. And if you go back and look at recent champions, I remember Matt Moscona did a show about this not too long ago, last year, and he talked about the recent champions' defensive rankings. I mean, and most of them was ranked in the top 40, top 50. One was, I think, ranked in the top 70. So if you're not in the bottom, like I think the lowest could have been like 120th or 125th in FBS rankings. So if you're just in that vicinity, if you're just in between the 40 and 60th ranked defense, I really do think you'll be okay. And I really do think LSU can be or will be in that ballpark this year. I really do. I mean, with the roster that we have now, if you want to add pieces to it, that could only help you. But like I said, Blake Baker, I think is going to be honestly the key factor for the defense. I mean, I know that's cliche to say. It's not even a player that I think is going to be a key factor. I really do think it's going to be Blake Baker and him just getting that defense ready to play, regardless of who comes or who leaves. That's just my opinion.
And I was just literally about to just ask you about Blake Baker. That's about the next question. That's funny. You saw what he did at Mizzou the last 2 seasons, and what kind of success he had at LSU with Damone Clark. What kind of success can he have in year 1 at LSU, and how realistic should the fans' expectations be here?
So for me, I honestly think my expectations are realistic. I mean, a top 60 defense is what I think could be the floor, the ceiling. I think top 40. I don't need anyone expecting this LSU defense to be number 1 in the country, number 2 in the country, because that's just unheard of. It's only been done probably a few times, and maybe I don't even know what 2019 LSU was, but they wasn't even ranked in the top 10. I think they was ranked according to Matt Moscona a few years ago. They was ranked in the top 30 or 20. So with this LSU defense, if you're just ranked in the top 40 to 60, I think that's realistic for Blake Baker. I mean, you've seen what he did at Missouri. I mean, you got Tyrone Hooper, who was a linebacker who got drafted to a team that escapes me at the moment. Then you got Darius Robinson, defensive end. I mean, Blake Baker kind of helped develop him at Mizzou, and Darius Robinson wound up being a high draft pick who was even high on my draft board. I mean, I really do think with Blake Baker at the helm, at the defensive coordinator spot for LSU, that realistically top 50, top 60 defense, I think, could be this year. And if you let him bring in all these recruits, all these 5 stars, like you seen Dominique McKinley coming in, you can see this LSU defense get back to what it once was. Like, the 2007 defense, the 2011 defense. I mean, 2019 was great too. But you might see him bring back the vintage defenses eventually, but I wouldn't expect it right away. So, like I said, to repeat myself again, top 60 is what I think is realistic this year.
Oh, that sounds beautiful to my ears, though, because we have this guy, Garrett Nussmeier. And you and I have talked a lot about Jaden Daniels in the last show.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about him headed to Washington as a second overall guy, as Heisman at LSU, of course, what he did at LSU, how just incredible he was. But now this is Garrett Nussmeier's team. When you think about the quarterback position at LSU in 2024, with Nuss as the starter, what are you thinking, Logan?
Well, what I'm thinking is we're watching highlights of the Wisconsin game right now, and I remember telling you and a few of the other LSU hopefuls out there that I want to see him go out and prove it to me that he can do it. I know he's got it in him. I just want to go see him do it, and he proved it to me. And watching that offense against Wisconsin, that told me, okay, we're set at quarterback for this year. I think Nuss, I mean, even if he just has like a Matt Flynn kind of season, I think honestly LSU's offense can be top 10 in the country again. I don't think offense is going to lose a step with Garrett Nussmeier as the starter. I think honestly he can maybe match not the running numbers, but the passing numbers that Jaden Daniels put up this year. Because I mean, you're keeping Joe Sloan around. I mean, he was a play caller at Louisiana Tech once upon a time, and they had one of the best offenses statistically in the country whenever he was the OC. And you're keeping everything in place, which I love. Continuity this is the only time I'll actually be a fan of continuity. So with Garrett Nussmeier leading the charge, I really do think this offense is going to be electric. I mean, you're going to miss Jaden Daniels' scramble ability, but Garrett Nussmeier's ability to throw the ball deep is just going to. I think it's going to be a killer. I mean, Jaden Daniels was killing people with the deep ball throughout the season in 2023, and I think Nussmeier, that's his specialty. I really do. I'm really excited to see what Nussmeier can do this year. I'm all on the Nuss bus.
You're firmly on the Nuss bus.
I officially stepped on the Nuss bus after that Wisconsin game. I mean, I was on the. I was kind of like, I was keeping the door open just in case I wanted to get off, but I'm like, I'm going to wait and see what he can do. And that Wisconsin game is what sold it for me. So I just, if he goes out there and throws 395 yards per game like he did against Wisconsin,
well, of course you're going to like him if he's good. Of course you're going to like him if he's good, Logan. I mean, what does that tell us, though? Well, I mean, what are you going to? Are you going to kill him when he throws that 3-interception game, or are you going to still have his back? Like, where do you go from here? Like, I see too many LSU fans just love these guys when they're successful and don't appreciate that sometimes there's kind of a struggle. There's a learning curve. There's a time to develop. Jaden Daniels had his year one. Joe Burrow, for hell's sakes, had his year one. All these guys have had this kind of – it seems like LSU guys have that year where they kind of figure it out no matter what. Is that going to be with Nuss? Is that going to be the case with Nuss? Is he going to be like ready-made, polished because he's been able to sit back and kind of watch all these wild experiences from Miles Brennan even to Max Johnson to Jaden Daniels? He's seen every type of quarterbacking experience at LSU. He's been able to sit back. He's polished, the son of a quarterback. He knows the playbook. Quarterback's coach is now the OC. Like, what type of what type of trajectory could we see in year one, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
So to answer the first question that you asked, how am I going to react when he throws a 3-interception game? I'm still going to be all on the Nuss bus because, I mean, when Jaden Daniels had those struggles early on when he was the starter, I still stood with him. I kept just trying to tell everyone, be patient. It's going to happen. And when it does, you're going to be happy that you stood on the Jaden Daniels hype train, just like it took me a while to get on the Nuss bus. And when it comes to some players, they don't you want to see consistency, but everyone has an off game. I mean, anyone who's played the game of football has off games, or any sport for that matter. You have off days, and it sucks, but it happens because we're all human. But even if Nuss throws 3 interceptions in the game, that doesn't mean necessarily you lose the game. I mean, 9 times out of 10, maybe, but you still have other things that you can do. You can run the ball, you can jailbreak screen it to death and get Nuss back in rhythm.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah. I think actually I could see Nuss winning more often than losing while throwing 3 picks, just because that would have to be that we have a defense ranked at least in the top 50, because obviously we turned the ball over and we have our defense last year. That's like walking off a cliff, my friend. I mean, we're just done. So I mean, he's got to take care of the football. I think he's going to have the offensive line, the play calling, and the running backs to do that. It's very interesting to me, man, because he really can break those type of numbers we saw last year from Jaden Daniels. He could put up those type of numbers. He is that type of talent. He's that type of arm. Does he have the receiving core? Does he have the tight ends? The tight ends look fantastic to me. I'll just say that right now. That's my take. But the receivers, so many people are just like drooling over the receivers. I see a few guys I really love. Aaron Anderson, definitely. Chris Hilton Jr., definitely. Kyron Lacy, he could become that number one guy. I think he's maybe being anointed a little too early, but he's done some freakish things already in an LSU uniform. We just want to see him come good. But are you worried at all about the passing game, like as far as personnel-wise with receiver?
absolutely not. I really do think that this offense still has so much firepower. I mean, yes, you lose your the triple threat trio in Jane Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas, but you are getting Kyron Lacy back. You have Aaron Anderson, who has tremendous speed, the New Orleans native. You get CJ Daniels at the portal from Liberty, who had over 1,000 yards receiving this year.
I know.
You get, I mean, and you get Xavier.
And he was playing with the third stringers.
Absolutely. I mean, you get Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State out the portal. He's a tremendous speedster too. I mean, you have speed all around, and I mean, speed kills. There's an old saying, speed kills. It really does. And if you look at Nussmeier, I mean, he is great at throwing the deep ball. I really do think you're going to start seeing a lot of bombs being dropped from Nussmeier to these receivers this year. And I mean, you also got to remember, you got Chris Hilton too. I mean, you got Sheldon Sampson. You got the tight end room that you mentioned. I mean, Mason Taylor's back. The offensive line is incredible. Probably a Joe Moore worthy award winning this year too. And I really don't think this offense is going to lose a step. I really don't. I mean, yes, you're going to miss Jaden. Like I said earlier in the show, you're going to miss Jaden Daniels' scramble ability, but Nussmeier, he's not a scrambler, but he's not, a statue. He can maybe get you 7 or 8 yards running and scrambling a little bit. I mean, Matt Flynn used to do that for us in 2007, and it worked out really well.
I'm so glad you're saying that, brother, because here's the thing. A lot of what his success was in that game, this Wisconsin win, a lot of it was from him just, moving a little bit to the left, moving a little bit to the right, moving 5 yards here, kind of extending the pocket, manipulating the pocket, kind of reformatting the pocket. It's, and just having a really good sense of everything that was around him, and just being able to throw some absolute darts with replatforming. And it just, to me, it was beautiful what we saw. But also, he can escape. He can get those yards. He's not going to ever do what Jaden Daniels did rushing the football. No one's even trying to pretend or kid themselves of that. But Garrett Nussmeier can escape. He can do things in the rushing game. When things break down, he can get you that first down when it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. He can do that. You don't want to see him taking hits. You want to see him get out of bounds. But he can be a weapon in that. I'm glad you brought that up. Another thing. Do you think this is technically a 2-year ride for Nuss as a starter?
It might be. It all depends on how this season goes. So say he's top 10 in the country, or even top 5, which I think call me crazy. I really do think he could be a top 5 quarterback in the country this year just because of the way the offense is put together around him and Joe Sloan. But
That's not crazy.
and some people might call me that. But
We've seen it.
you might see him go into the draft this year because I mean Matt Flynn only had 1 year as a starter, and then he did fairly well, and then he went to the draft. I kind of compared Nuss's journey the way I compared to Matt Flynn's because Matt Flynn waited his turn. I mean, he had to wait through Jamarcus Russell, Marcus Randall, just kind of like, Garrett Nussmeier had to wait through Jane Daniels, Max Johnson. I mean, so many quarterbacks that was in front of him, and now it's his turn. I think it could be a 2-year thing with Nussmeier, but if he just comes out and plays like I know he can and has a top 5 season, he could be leaving. There will be an early draft pick, top 3 rounded draft pick from 1st to 3rd round. So I'd like Nuss to be here for the long haul, but I mean, if he leaves, then that's fine because you got all these amazing quarterbacks that Brian Kelly has recruited. I mean, you got Ricky Collins, and then you got Bryce Underwood coming in here soon. So,
and Colin Hurley too.
Colin Hurley, can't forget about him. Good God, how did I forget about him? Yeah,
It's
I
crazy.
don't want it to just be a 1-year thing with Nuss, but if it is, then I mean that's fine because I mean that just means he did his job, he played well, and then we're going to be rooting for him in the NFL. So, and that means we was winning and we had a great year. That's all I see it.
Oh, they're laughing about my search history on YouTube because maybe they're laughing at the sleep video for the baby where it plays some lullaby song or something. Who knows what they're laughing at? But look at this. Aaron Anderson is going to be Percy Harvin this year. Dude,
Ooh.
I love that comment, not only because I think he's going to be utilized in as much of that same way, used where he's motioned across the formation a lot, put into the backfield at times. We should run the football with this guy. We should use him to augment and kind of accompany the rushing game. And you get him in motion, give him the football. We have not even scraped the surface of what is possible with him. He just had zero chemistry with Jaden Daniels.
Whoops, my mic was muted. My bad. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, when we first got Aaron Anderson, I mean, I loved him in high school because I mean he was playing high school ball in New Orleans, and I was always hearing about him. And people who I know are big high school football nerds and love it so much. I mean, they was telling me about this guy. I'm like, okay, maybe I should watch him. Once I started watching, and then when he went to Alabama, I'm like, dang, that sucks. And then he transfers here. I was super ecstatic, and Percy Harvin is really a great comp because at first I was thinking more along the lines of like, a Darren Sproles because, I mean, Aaron Anderson, he can kick return, punt return. I mean, he can catch, he can run. He can be used all over the field. I mean, just like Percy Harvin.
Can he, though?
I mean, that might –
Can he, bro? Can he really?
I think he can if he that just seems like Florida State has our number and just lights might have been too bright for us, but I'm not going to knock that on him. But the Percy Harvin comp is a great comp from your friend Chris here. And like Percy Harvin, tremendous player, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah.
If you can use Aaron Anderson like Florida used Percy Harvin all those years ago, I mean, you can hand it to Aaron Anderson out the backfield. You can line up in pistol, you can line up in shotgun, have him next to you, hand it directly to him on the inside zone play, outside zone, whatever. And he can I really do think he can run in between the tackles. I mean, if he needed to. I mean, this kid has an it factor to him. I mean, I don't just say anyone has an it factor, but Aaron Anderson has an it factor to him. They just have to get him the ball because he really is an offensive weapon, and I really do think he can cause defensive coordinators nightmares throughout the games this season.
Oh, God, yes. And really open a lot of space in the field. Well, here we go. I show him muff a punt. I'm going to do what I should. Show what else he can do in the special teams game right there. Look at that. It's just almost like it looks like he's walking right there. It looks like he is not even oh my God. He's not even at a park, bro.
He has tremendous speed. I mean, When I first heard about him, I mean, it was when he was in high school. Someone told me about him, and that's when I started paying attention. So his speed is just off the charts. I mean, he might be as fast. He could be as fast as Tyreek Hill for all we know. We don't know, but he could be.
I mean, like let's don't be saying like such crazy stuff yet. I mean, Tyreek Hill is an absolute freak burger. I mean, that's that guy is a Super Bowl winner. He's a proven freak, and he's a proven like register those crazy numbers as far as going off in the speed department. Aaron Anderson, though, I think he's barely scratched that surface. I think he could be an absolute weapon for LSU this next season. Who is a Tiger on offense and defense, so one of each, that you feel is going to break out this year for you, Logan?
I think this is going to be an easy one for me on offense, and I'm not even going to say Garrett Nussmeier because that's too easy. Which I'm going to say Caleb Jackson, the young buck running back. I think Caleb Jackson just seems like he might be a reincarnated Leonard Fournette. You see, he's got the size, he's got the he's got the speed, he's got the strength. He could run you over, and I don't even think he's even scratched the surface yet. I mean, we only got to see just a little bit of Caleb Jackson last year, and it was fantastic. He, like I said, he might be the next Leonard Fournette. And on the defensive side of the ball, we mentioned him already in the show. I mean, I know you said you don't necessarily you want to see it come to into fruition. I think Jacoby and Guillory really, I think, can finally put it together this year and have that breakout season. That's who I think on the defensive side of the ball, because we need him to. He has no choice but to break out, in my opinion, because we need him to. Because, like I said, you're thin at defensive tackle. We've mentioned that. So I really do think Guillory on the defensive side of the ball can be that breakout player. And like I said, Caleb Jackson, he's doing what Leonard Fournette did all those years ago. He could be the next great LSU running back. I really do believe so much of Caleb Jackson. Such a stud. He's a real stud.
Such violence.
I'm here.
I love watching him run the football. I mean, bro, great pick on offense, because I think he's going to be the next 1,000-yard rusher at least. Whatever type of season you want to say, okay, but I think he's going to at least get over 1,000 yards. I think he's going to get the ball that much. I think he's even going to be a threat in the receiving game. Josh Williams, I think, is going to be that starter. He's going to be that guy who maybe gets the ball at the most have to have it moments, most high pressure moments when the game is really on the line. Give it to Josh. But I think you're going to see Caleb really take that next level and go for 1,000 yards. On defense, Jacoby and Guillory, that's a very interesting proclamation, because he does just have to go. He does just have to get it going.
I have one more, and it's on the defensive side of the ball, and I can't wait till he comes back from injury. I got to shout out the former Southeastern Lion. I did it on your last show. I'm going to do it again. Zy Alexander. I think he's going to be one of those sneaky good cornerbacks for LSU this year, or even in the country. I mean, I really just hope he gets back healthy, and he's learning from one of the godfathers of, DBU and Corey Raymond. So it can't be bad. And I really am looking forward to not only Guillory, but Zy Alexander. I can't wait to see him get back.
Is that maybe a problem? Do you think, just like looking at it from 10,000 feet, I know you're biased as someone from Southeastern, but do you think it is a problem that LSU are, starting a corner from Southeastern? We're going into the portal for a guy from Grand Valley. We've got some of these other small schools that make up Kyron Lacey, number one receiver, is going to be a guy who's coming from Ragin' Cajuns. Do you think that's an issue with LSU, that a problem that might, in the future come back to bite us, that we've kind of lowered our standards, I guess, on talent acquisition? Or do you think that is lowering the standards?
I don't think it's lowering the standards necessarily, because, I mean, there's a lot of great FCS players out there. I mean, we've seen them get drafted. I mean, look back to 2013, Robert Alford, cornerback from Southeastern, drafted in the second round to the Atlanta Falcons, played in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady and had a pick six in the Super Bowl on Tom Brady, and he came from Southeastern in Hammond, Louisiana. So you can go out and get FCS talent and bring them to LSU, and I think you're going to do well. So I don't think there's really that much of a talent drop off. It's just I think it's just two different divisions, and it's just to each their own. But I really you can get these smaller school guys. I really do enjoy like seeing LSU pick up these smaller school guys because I'm like, okay, they were great there. I think they could be good here, and they have something more to prove because they're coming from a smaller school. I mean, Kyron Lacey came from ULL, which I don't necessarily think is that much of a smaller school because they play in the Sun Belt, but compared to LSU, maybe. And we've seen it done before. We've seen LSU take these smaller school guys and develop them into something tremendous. I mean, can that be Javier Suggs from Grand Valley State if we do get him? Maybe. Could it be Aiden Huntington from UL Monroe? Maybe. We don't know, but it's worked for us before. I really do think Division 2, 3 schools in the FCS level players that LSU does get, I think they are talented, just as talented as the players that already are in the SEC.
I think you've got a great point there. I think it was fantastic example using Robert Alford. Like, dude, that was just impressive. Fantastic. No preparation on that question. That was a question I threw at him, and Logan just destroyed that, like just meat through the grinder. Like, bro, take a bow. But also, I tend to agree with you because they have a chip on their shoulder. Not all of them are going to come good. Andre Sam didn't really pan out. There's guys in the past I can point to, Liam Shanahan, who came out of the Ivy Leagues. He was able to hold his own and keep LSU kind of the finger in the dam, I guess, of the offensive line, just so I guess the quarterback didn't get killed. But, like, other than that, like, Max Johnson got his ribs destroyed with those offensive lines. Like, I mean, he almost got assassinated because of our offensive line. That's why Kelly immediately comes in and is like, I have to repair everything. That's why so many freshmen started on that offensive line when he first comes in. It was in such a disastrous shape. Point is, LSU, I have no problem. Go wherever the talent is. Go wherever, but at the same time, don't just get bodies. Don't just stack bodies just to get bodies, because we've seen that go sideways on us the last 2 years. Where we stack the roster and maybe we lower the roster's, overall talent and ability level when you're stacking just bodies here and there from the portal, because we have some, gaps, some needs to fill. And I've heard a lot of LSU fans saying that. Just get a body at DT. Just get a body. No, I don't want to just get a body and just throw them at. They need to be good enough for LSU. They need to be good enough to play in the SEC. And they need to be an actual defensive tackle athletic profile, or there's no point in getting them.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I do think it's like I said. I mean, if you want to go out and get a smaller school guy, that's fine, because I do think a lot of the smaller school guys do come in with a chip on their shoulder, and they do perform fairly well 9 times or even half the time. I mean, we see it in the NFL. I mean, my team, the New Orleans Saints, I mean, have made a thing out of it for years, drafting and signing these smaller school guys, and they come in to be great. And one of them, off the top of my head, is Jari Evans, future Hall of Fame offensive guard. Came from a small school that no one's even heard of. I think it was called Bloomsburg, to my knowledge. And then you get someone like Jermon Bushrod, who the Saints had at left tackle out of Towson. I mean, so the smaller school guys, I do think sometimes they come with a chip on their shoulders because they come from such a smaller school and they have something to prove. And you love that mentality that they come in with, because, I mean, and if it works out, then great. So the smaller schools, I have such respect for, because, I mean, like I said, they have so much talent that no one sees, and they have it. So when they come here, I'm happy about it.
Well, I mean, there's a reason some of the guys are playing junior college. There's a reason some of the guys are not in the SEC. But not everybody maybe wants football to be the nonstop main focus of their life and future. So I get it. That's why some of those guys are there and not necessarily in the SEC. different demands, different environment, all that. But I find it interesting when you get a guy like Zy Alexander. He ends up starting for LSU in his first season, 7 pass breakups, leads the team in the pass breakups, has 2 picks, only plays like just barely over half the season. So that's a highly productive campaign in a year where we were disastrous and terrible. Although I will say, you look at the stats, Zy Alexander also surrendered 5 passing touchdowns. So, 7 pass breakups, 5 passing touchdowns allowed over his head, though. So we definitely need to see him buckle down there. Definitely need to see the entire coverage in the back figured out. But luckily for LSU fans, luckily for LSU, they have plenty of time to figure that out this summer, this fall, and hopefully they do. My man Logan, next time would love to preview USC, the LSU USC game with you. Would love to have you on next time, my man, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me online. It's always great coming on this show. I love talking LSU football with you. It's always a fun time.
My brother, take it easy, Logan.
See you, Lon.
Have a good weekend and tell your mother Happy Mother's Day.
Back at you, man. Thank you.